Hello guys, it's Ryan Ho back with another video. Today I want to talk about the best headphone I've ever heard. This is the Abyss Diana MR, and the reason why I really like this headphone is that it's kind of has a studio type of tuning, which means it's not like overly bright, nothing is weird, everything sounds really natural. And the other thing that this headphone also has is that it has the ability to have a lot of dynamics and give you that sense of feeling when you're listening to your music. So a good example of this is like if you're watching like Star Wars and there's like a big like aircraft flying over you, and if you're watching that in a movie theater, it literally like shakes the movie theater. Like you can hear it and you feel the rumble, and it feels like the plane is like basically passing you. Or when you're watching like Star Wars as well, if they have like a lightsaber and they're kind of swinging it in front of them, you can literally feel the vibration of like that lightsaber. That type of effect they do in movies, you can really feel it on the Abyss Diana MR. Like it has that physical feeling as if you're like there. Obviously not to like the grand scale as like a movie theater, but it gives you that same sense of like 3D kind of feeling that you get. And that's one thing I think this headphone also really excels at. The tuning of this headphone can actually be changed a little bit. So they actually have 4 different pads that comes with, but essentially you can get a bass ported version of this pad, which gives you more bass. And then they also have these suede pads that kind of tame the treble a little bit more of like the upper treble. And then they also have the bass ported version of that if you want more bass as well. So those are other options they have. And then there's also a little easy kind of bass mod trick that I'll teach you guys as well that can also increase the bass on this headphone. Now there's a lot of stuff to cover, and this headphone is $3,000, so it's quite expensive. However, there wasn't really many other headphones I heard that really kind of had all the characteristic that this headphone has, because honestly it is extremely detailed. Like when people say like texture of notes, like I feel like I finally heard all of that texture in a note I've ever heard in this headphone. So we'll describe that more in detail. So when it comes to power for this headphone, it has 30 ohms and it has 91 dB of sensitivity. So they tried to make this headphone easier to drive. So this headphone is definitely easier to drive than prior Abyss headphones. I would say that you could run it on an Apple dongle, but you're really pushing the limits of that. And if you're running on something small like that, you're not going to get much of the dynamics. You could also run this on something like the iFi Uno. That one kind of sounds pretty good, honestly, but you could definitely can get bigger, better sound staging, more detail, and even more dynamics. So I tested it on the SMSL SU9 right here, which is a balanced DAC with a Saber DAC. And then we have the iFi iCan over here, which is a Class A amplifier that's fully balanced, discrete, and then all that stuff. So this one sounds really good. It really does punch really hard on this amplifier. But yeah, that's kind of the power requirements. You can run it on cheaper stuff, but it will sound better on better stuff, right? All right, so let's talk about the accessories and the box that you get. So I bought mine at Canjam, so not exactly sure if I got everything, but it seems like I should have everything that everyone else got. So the cable is a 2.5 millimeter cable. It kind of is contoured to fit the cup of the headphones. So really it kind of slots in exactly where it should be. So it creates this nice flush look, and you know, it kind of just melds into the whole entire headphone, which is a nice kind of touch to it. However, this could make, you know, buying aftermarket cables a little bit more difficult. You can also see that this cable is kind of really thin up top, and then it goes into a kind of thicker cable. You have different options to go with, but I went with the Pentacon one because it seems the most mobile friendly / most versatile cable to use. We have the Abyss. It has their new case that they haven't really shown before, but this box is kind of cool. And yeah, so your headphone really sits perfectly inside, and yeah, it's a nice hard case for your headphone. All right, so let's have a closer look at the Abyss Diana MR. So it comes to the build quality and stuff. I got the forged carbon version because I really like this kind of speckled type of look. When you kind of move into light, it kind of shifts around like it's dancing. So I thought this was the best looking version. They also have like a wood one and just a normal like kind of striped carbon version, but I really like this one, so I got this one. They have, you know, different color bands, so this is kind of their leather on top for the band, and then we have the leather pads. So I got the stock pads for my headphone, not the suede ones, and I got it in the normal non-bass ported one. So the cool thing about this headphone is the fact that the ear pads are magnetic, so you can actually just pull them off like this. And this way you can kind of see the driver and all its glory. You can actually see through the driver, which is actually really interesting. It's pretty transparent, which I thought was kind of cool. And yeah, the ear pad essentially has magnets behind it. As you can see the little circles on there, and that kind of sticks to the driver because it has strong magnets inside of it. So that's kind of cool. And this just makes pad swapping just very easy and really not that hard to do. Now the bass port trick, or I guess the bass mod trick, which I just call it bass mode for simplicity reasons, is you see how this kind of line is down here? Normally it would be kind of facing towards you near the bottom, right? This is the default configuration. If you turn this up 90 degrees and put it up top and then put it on your head, what actually happens is it creates an air gap on your head. Essentially, you have this gap down here, and that allows more airflow into the headphone. And because of that, it allows the bass to kind of get boosted. Small side effect of this is that your sub bass, your lowest sub bass will kind of be less present, but you get a big bass boost that's much more fun to listen to. So I've been actually just doing that for a long time because it's really fun to listen to and something kind of worth considering if you want to. You could also put this and kind of like rotate it in front as well if you enjoy that, but I typically like to leave it back here simply because I want my headphone to kind of angle forward a little bit. That's what helps the kind of imaging in my experience. Now, I feel like the build quality of this headphone can really be summarized as premium, and they kind of made this headphone to last a very long time. So if you look at these extensions, they're basically done with magnets as well. So that should prevent it from wearing over time. I've had headphones that have, the mechanism kind of break over time, they get jammed and they don't work anymore. This headphone surely won't have that type of issue because they built it that way. It isn't fully lie flat like some other headphones, but you can definitely kind of move it a little bit, and it typically, in my experience, it fits fine on my head. It doesn't make any uncomfortable parts on my head. Now, one thing I did notice about this headphone is definitely the headband. So the headband is pretty kind of thin, and they add a little bit of padding, but there's not really that much there. They definitely could have a little bit more padding, in my opinion. However, I did find this headphone to be decently fine. I think if the pads and the clamp onto your head a little bit better, it kind of relieves the weight up top. When you take off the ear pads of this headphone, you can really see how kind of thin it is. Really, this is what the whole entire headphone looks like. It looks very, very thin. But the thing that I like the most is just how well this part is built. It feels so sturdy. It doesn't feel like it will break at all. And it's all made of aluminum, and it's just really nice. But yeah, just look how thin that is. It's pretty crazy. So when it comes to the weight of this headphone, it's 420 grams. Now that's quite a big difference from the number I saw on their website. I think their website was like 360. So I'm not sure if that has something to do with the fact that I got the forged carbon version or something else, but the weight is definitely more than their kind of number they have online. All right, let's talk about sound. So how does the Best Diana MR sound? So if I had to describe the whole entire sound signature, I would say it's a studio headphone. They even market it as, and you can even see kind of the measurements of it if you wanted to, that it's very kind of studio-like. So what that really means is it has this flat bass with a completely full mid-range where vocals, instruments are all kind of pushed forward and very present in the mix. And then when you get to the treble, it is the definition of neutral. I don't hear any kind of darkness in the treble at all. And it's not overemphasized. It's not sharp. It's not sibilant. It's none of those words at all. This is like the perfectly neutral type of treble that is really, really enjoyable for like all types of music. I really do like this headphone a lot, especially when I feel like a lot of headphones are just overly bright. This doesn't give you any of that type of feeling. Sometimes the upper treble does come across as just a little bit, I can feel like it's slightly, very slightly emphasized, but that's about it. Honestly, this headphone really is the definition of a good tuning and the most kind of studio sounding headphone I've heard. Now, the most exciting part about this headphone is definitely the bass dynamics. I feel like that is really fun, and you can definitely hear this headphone play all the way down to the deepest sub bass and bass. But when you kind of, activate the bass mode on this headphone, which basically what you do, right, is you flip the pads, right? And that really increases the bass and it lowers the treble a little bit and it creates this much more fun experience. And in that mode, you can really, really hear all the dynamics of the songs that you're listening to. Now, this doesn't change the headphone into a bass headphone, but it definitely gives us a bass boost, and that lift allows you to kind of enjoy more modern music like pop and like EDM more. And obviously, I listen to a lot of that. So I really do like it in the bass boosted mode. In fact, I have been using it basically exclusively in the bass boost mode. However, I do think in the standard configuration, it does have, a better kind of more forward vocal presentation. So that's still, I think, the superior, more neutral type of tuning. But the bass mode is really, really fun. When it comes to kind of like the detail of this headphone, that's where I feel like it really excels a lot over all of my headphones. Like, there's a difference between, having bass quantity, a lot of bass, and like dynamics and bass quality. A good example for me, at least, was I was comparing this to some of my cheaper planars, and when I hear some of the notes of the bass, they kind of were like, they're more circular, they're more bloomy, they're kind of more diffuse sounding. Versus when you hear it on the bass, it's just like this like solid punch. It's like solid, very defined. You can hear it. It doesn't bloom. It's just very there, like defined, so sharp that I don't think I've ever heard anything that sharp. And you combine that with the fact that it just like hits you. You can feel the air moving. You can feel like the vibrations of the strings, all of that really adds to the experience and making it more believable and more realistic to me. And so I feel like that characteristic about this headphone really, really stands out. And then of course, like, when I was listening to like my cheaper headphones compared to this, one of the things that really stand out is just how kind of there's a lot of people call stillness between the notes, and there's a lot of speed to this headphone. You don't really feel like any note is really lasting too long. You don't really hear that notes are kind of blended together, they're kind of blurred. You don't get any of that at all on this headphone. Every single note is just clearly like delineated. You can hear it in the different places in your head, and they don't even like mix together. Even compared to like my best planar headphones, this one still shows that it is a step up in resolution, and it's just so clean and clear that when I go back to listening to other things, I'm just like, damn, I feel like I'm missing something, That's the type of feeling I get when I listen to this. And yeah, it just makes me really just want to listen to this headphone all the time. It took me so long to do this review because I literally just wanted to listen to it all day. Like, I couldn't just wait to get back home just to listen to this headphone. So that's kind of how excited I was to listen to this. And I just wanted to listen to like all my favorite songs on it. So yeah, it's that type of headphone that is just very enjoyable to listen to. So lastly, let's talk about soundstage and imaging, right? So for the soundstage of this, I noticed that the soundstage wouldn't be the biggest thing I have ever heard in my life. However, the soundstage is really, really good, especially when I go back to some of my dynamic headphones. They all sound smaller in comparison to this headphone. This headphone definitely has a nice soundstage. It's kind of tall, it's decently wide, and I think you'll like the way it sounds. And of course, the imaging on this headphone is quite good. I tested this in Valorant again because you can kind of see the enemy and then you try to hear them. And if they are where you predict them to be, then you know that the imaging is good, right? So for me, this headphone is really, really good. You'll have no problems playing games with this. It's very accurate. On top of that, just being extremely detailed and accurate in imaging, it makes gaming just a pleasant experience and honestly very easy. You're never going to have way too many sounds coming at you where you just can't, you can't hear them all. You get overwhelmed. Like, this just kind of separates them all, which is really fun to use. So this really leads me to the conclusions. If I had to summarize this headphone, this is probably the most studio accurate headphone I've heard. There's a lot of headphones that call themselves studio headphones, but they're not as accurate as this. This is one of the most accurate ones I've ever heard. On top of activating the bass mode and changing this into a more fun and enjoyable headphone, you can also do that as well. And then, of course, like I said, I think the dynamics and kind of that whole entire physicality is one of the main points that I like about this headphone. It really does excel in that. And of course, all those details, the textures of the sounds, like you could hear a lot more compared to all your other headphones. Like it's quite surprising when you get to this headphone how much it can kind of pull out of your music. And I find that very enjoyable. I feel like the most limiting factor that you hear on this headphone is the quality of the music you're listening to. Sincerely, like when I listen to like my early 2000 playlists that I like to listen to, like Linkin Park or like Avril Lavigne, you can really tell how kind of compressed those songs are compared to some of the more modern stuff. Like if you listen to kind of the Billie Eilish's like latest albums, those sound just super clean, super crisp. Like you can hear all the details. And if you really want like get the most out of this headphone, listening to like really well recorded music will really pull all the detail out of this headphone, and you will really hear the difference. In my opinion, you definitely, when you listen to older songs, you can definitely hear them better than you have ever heard them before. However, they are still limited by just how compressed the nature of their music is. And I feel like at this point, like there's just so much detail that really you're just focused on like how do you pull the most out of your songs, honestly. Or honestly, different DACs and amps can also kind of enhance the sound, because you can definitely hear the difference between a cheap DAC and like a more expensive DAC. And yeah, you can definitely tell. So in my opinion, this headphone is one of the most highly resolving headphone that is really accurate and nice to listen to. I hope this video helped you guys. Please like and subscribe down below. Comment if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them. And of course, subscribe so you won't miss out on more videos like this and other audio related reviews. And I'll see you guys in the next video. I definitely have some cool stuff coming up as well, like the Moondrop Blessing 3. I'll probably do some comparison to like the variations. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.